Here is something most business owners only find out after the worst night of their working lives. In a standard general liability policy, smoke and soot are classified as pollutants. Not fire damage, not debris, pollutants. The same legal bucket as chemical spills, toxic fumes, and industrial waste. And that is not a rumor or some internet loophole theory. It comes straight from the definitions section of the standard form, and later in this episode, I will read you the exact list. That single word can sit quietly in your fine print for years. Then one bad night something catches fire, and that word wakes up. Because think about it, when a building burns, what actually does most of the damage? Usually it is not the flames at all, it is the smoke. Which means the biggest line on a fire claim can be denied as an excluded environmental cleanup, without anyone ever arguing about the fire itself. So today we are walking one fire claim through that exact denial. We will read the policy words carriers lean on, find the hidden exception that can rescue you, and cover the fixes to demand before your next renewal. Let us set the scene. Imagine you run a small bakery in a strip mall. One night long after closing, a wiring fault behind your ovens starts a fire. Nobody is hurt. The doors were locked, the alarm did its job, and the trucks rolled fast. As fires go, you got lucky. The sprinklers and the fire department knock it down quickly. The flames never make it past your back wall. By sunrise, the fire itself is old news. But smoke does not respect walls. It rode the shared attic and the air ducts, and it settled into every corner of the building. Next door, the family restaurant is coated in a greasy black film. The dining room, the kitchen, the inventory, the ceiling tiles, all of it. The restaurant shuts down, calls in a remediation crew, and sends the whole bill in your direction. Their lawyer's position is simple. Your fire, your smoke, your problem. Now your own space is a mess too, but that claim runs through your own property policy, and that is a different episode. Today we are following the neighbor's claim because that is where this trap lives. And honestly, this is exactly what your general liability policy exists for. Damage you accidentally cause to other people and to their property. So you file the claim, you exhale, and you wait for the system to do its job. And that is right where the story bends. Then the letter arrives, and it cuts your claim in two. The carrier accepts part of it. The scorched shared wall, the charred framing, the melted wiring next door. The damage the flames touched directly gets covered. But the smoke and soot remediation, the deep cleaning, the sealing, the air scrubbing, the duct work, denied. And here is the shocking part. The denial letter barely mentions the fire. It quotes the pollution exclusion. In the carrier's framing, the soot that drifted out of your bakery and settled next door was not fire damage at all. It was the dispersal of a pollutant, and pollutants are excluded. The adjuster is not improvising here, and they are not being cruel. They are pointing at a definition that has been sitting in the form the entire time. Now put illustrative numbers on it. Say the flame damage next door runs $30,000 and the smoke and soot cleanup runs $180,000. The denied piece is nearly the entire claim. One fire, two labels, and the label, not the flames, decides who pays. So let us read the actual words, because this is where it stops sounding like a technicality. Most standard general liability policies carry a pollution exclusion. In plain terms, it removes coverage for injury or damage arising from the discharge, dispersal, release, or escape of pollutants. Agents and coverage attorneys often call the modern version the absolute pollution exclusion. The name is a hint. It was written to shut the door hard. Then the policy defines the word pollutant, and this is where fire claims get caught. The common definition says a pollutant is any solid, liquid, gaseous, or thermal irritant or contaminant. Then it lists examples: smoke, vapor, soot, fumes, chemicals, waste. Read that list again. Smoke and soot are not being squeezed into the definition by a creative adjuster. They are named in it, word for word. So was this clause really written to catch a bakery fire? Probably not. It grew out of decades-old fights over industrial pollution and massive environmental cleanup costs. But policy language does not care what it was written for. It cares what it says. And courts in different states have read this same clause in very different ways. Some judges have held that it only reaches true environmental contamination. Others have applied the plain words to everyday accidents, exactly like our soot. Which means a soot claim like this one can get paid in one state and denied in another. You do not want your recovery hanging on that coin flip. Now for the lifeline hiding inside the exclusion. It is called the hostile fire exception. Standard general liability forms typically carve one thing back out of the pollution exclusion: damage arising from heat, smoke, or fumes from a hostile fire. And a hostile fire has a specific meaning in these forms. It is a fire that becomes uncontrollable or that breaks out from the place it was meant to be. Your oven flame is what the industry calls a friendly fire. It is supposed to be there. The moment fire escapes that box and runs up your wall, it turns hostile. That exception is aimed at exactly our bakery story. Smoke from a hostile fire is typically pulled back out of the pollution exclusion and back into coverage. In other words, the people who drafted these forms knew that ordinary fires make smoke. The exception exists so the pollution clause could not swallow every fire claim. So why do denials like this still happen? Often because of one quiet page stapled to the back of the policy: an endorsement. Some carriers add what is called a total pollution exclusion. Some versions of that endorsement keep the hostile fire exception. Other versions remove it entirely. That one page can be the difference between a covered smoke claim and a six-figure bill you carry alone. And most owners never find out which version they bought. Let us talk about why the soot line is the one that really hurts. Flame damage is usually local. It lives in the room where the fire lived. Smoke damage is the whole building because air goes everywhere. And soot is acidic. It keeps working long after the fire is out. It etches metal, corrodes electronics, and soaks odor deep into anything porous. So real remediation is not a mop and a long weekend. It can mean stripping ductwork, sealing the framing, replacing insulation, and treating every single surface the air touched. And while that work drags on, the business next door stays closed. Lost income stacks on top of the cleanup bill, and all of it is pointed at your policy. That is why smoke and soot cleanup so often ends up as the biggest line item on a fire loss, bigger than the burned structure itself. Deny that one category, and a carrier can technically honor the policy while walking away from most of the loss. So here is what you ask for before your next renewal. Write these down. First, ask your agent one direct question. Does my policy carry a total pollution exclusion endorsement? And if so, does it keep the hostile fire exception? Do not settle for a verbal yes. Ask for the specimen forms and the endorsement list along with your quote, so you can see the exclusion and the exception with your own eyes. If that exception is missing, ask for a form that includes it or ask what it would take to add the carve back. This is a normal request, and good agents hear it all the time. Second, ask about pollution carve-backs in general. Many policies can be endorsed to give back specific slices of pollution coverage instead of excluding the whole category. Third, if you are a contractor or you regularly work inside other people's buildings, ask about contractors' pollution liability. It is coverage built for the pollution-style claims that general liability forms push out. And if you own your building, or you handle anything with real environmental exposure, ask about a standalone pollution legal liability policy on top of that. If you are a new agent watching this, flip it around. Walking a client through this exclusion before renewal instead of after a loss is how you earn an account for life. Finally, get the answers in writing before renewal, not during a claim. The week after a fire is the worst possible time to learn new vocabulary. None of this requires you to become a coverage lawyer. It requires one honest conversation with the right questions once a year. So let us land the plane. After a fire, the flames are only half the story. The other half is smoke and soot, and your policy may quietly file those under pollution. The standard definition of pollutants names smoke and soot outright. The hostile fire exception typically pulls accidental fires back into coverage, and a single endorsement can take that lifeline away. And the fixes are refreshingly boring. Check the endorsement, keep the hostile fire exception, and add pollution coverage where your work actually needs it. Because the scariest exclusions are never the ones you argued over. They are the ones you never knew were in the file. One important note before you go. This channel is education, not insurance advice. Policy forms and state rules vary a lot, so please sit down with a licensed agent and review what your own policy actually says. If this made the fine print a little less sneaky, do me a favor and subscribe. Here at the coverage desk, we read the policy so you know what you are actually buying. I am Ray. I will see you in the next one.